giant robots smashing into other giant robots.
Wow. So
Yeah.
growing up for me, like minimum wage was, I think when I started work, it was like £5 an hour.
Yeah, it was $5.25 when I started working.
Yeah.
So when I joined thoughtbot and they told me it's going to be £7.50 an hour, I was buzzing.
Wait, you made $7.50? Oh, I should have negotiated.
yeah, I went in hard. I like really negotiated hard. I told them I had all these dependents that need me to make some big cash.
Good luck with that.
Yeah, so it's $15, and is that just in your state, or is that is it a federal thing where it's across the US?
I think some other states are similar, but yeah, there's a federal minimum wage, but states started to increase it.
I think federal is $7.25. I think it's $7.25.
Yeah.
Oh, so okay, so we have that actually in the UK. So there's like a government minimum wage, and then they've come out with like I don't know if it's a London or it's called like a living wage, which is higher than the minimum wage. So the minimum
this is a little bit different where
on.
the states actually enforce a state can set its own minimum wage, and within that state it's required.
Okay.
But actually, in some ways, it's a little tricky. Because by states increasing the minimum wage, it actually reduces the pressure on the federal minimum wage to be increased. So, for example, like if everyone in Massachusetts was complaining because the minimum wage was too low federally, it would apply pressure federally. Now, Massachusetts doesn't care about the federal minimum wage anymore as much.
Got it.
So
that's actually good, because some states are really expensive compared to other ones.
Yes.
Which
Yeah,
everyone deserves a living wage. Let me just say that.
That's true. You're right.
But
Massachusetts has a higher cost of living, and so it makes sense that Massachusetts has a higher minimum wage.
Yeah, it's funny because the richest I've ever felt, or possibly I've ever been, is when I used to work as behind the bar in a Chinese restaurant when I was in university, and I lived at home. I had no expenses, and I was making £40 a shift, and I had so much money I didn't know what to do with it. Like it was amazing. It was such a good time. I brought myself all gadgets that I wanted. I got into not a great habit of renting these BMW 1 Series and kind of driving those around in the evening.
Wow.
Yeah, it was good times.
Was part of it that, and be honest, no one's watching. What were you making tips that were not taxed? So you were taking home the 40 full?
I actually, well, the 40 was just the salary. We don't really.
That's true. You don't really tip in the same way.
It doesn't work in the UK with tipping. There were tips, but they would all go into a pot, and then we would split them at the end of the month. But I wasn't earning enough anyway to be taxed.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the richest I've ever been in terms of dispensable income. It was a good time to be alive.
Yeah,
it was great. But before we get in trouble, if you haven't already guessed, this is the Giant Robots Smashing into Other Giant Robots podcast, where we explore minimum wage, the design, development, and business of great products. I'm Sami Birnbaum, and I'm joined today by
Chad Pytel, and I'm joined today by
my bad. Boop, boop, boop. Will Larry.
That's great.
We're gonna leave that in.
Yeah, let's leave it. Do you know? I know we're going to get into some topics which are relevant, but I have to share this with someone because last night I watched something I wish I never watched, and I struggled to sleep after seeing this.
Was it a scary movie?
it was actually, so it was a nature program all about like parenthood. So about kind of parents and children. It's a recent one by David Attenborough.
So
And
it was a horror movie.
well, for some people it might be horror. There's this a spider mother, right, which has these spiderlings in the nest, and I can't remember the breed of spider, and maybe we'll try and put it in the show notes. I don't know, but the spider
We won't.
we that's not going to happen. The spider mother. How many spiderlings, which is a really cute name for spider babies, do you think that this spider mother has?
Well, if Charlotte's Web is any indication, and I know everything I know about spiders from Charlotte's Web, it's hundreds, thousands.
Yeah, that's one of the worst things to see.
Yeah, it's so there's these 1,000 spiderlings, right, that come out, and
I was right.
You are right.
Charlotte's Web never lets you wrong.
it doesn't let you down. And there was this talking pig, right? Is that Charlotte's Web thing?
Pig.
Yeah, okay. The mother, and this is across the animal kingdom, right? It's a typical thing that the parent then has to feed and support the children, and it's a struggle to find food. So initially, the mother produces, I don't want to say some milk, but it's something which comes from the mouth area of the mother, and then after a while, the mother's required to get bigger things as the spiderlings grow. So there's a fly, or there's something which gets caught in the net. And as the spiderlings get to a certain age, the mother cannot provide enough food for 1,000 of them. And so what the mother does is mimic herself being stuck in the web. So she starts to tap with her feet like prey would if they were stuck in the web. And this indicates to the spiderlings that the mother is prey. And they then group together and clamber all over the mother and consume the mother until she is no more. And this was horrific.
Wow.
I mean, it's
Is
functional.
this what you watch for entertaining?
I didn't know it was going to be
nightly
that.
entertaining?
Do you know what? It should come with a warning. In this program you're about to watch, a mother will be consumed by 1,000 babies. But it doesn't have that warning.
We'll put that warning at the top of our show.
We're going to have to. It was the way they explained it was like it was an incredible sacrifice that the mother makes. But it really, like, sometimes we look at nature and we refer to nature as something which is wholesome or healing. And there was nothing of that in this part of nature. This part of nature was horrendous. Yeah, I had to get that off my chest.
See, now I'm scared. My kids do a thing where if I sit on the floor, all four of them just like slowly pile on top of me somehow. And now I'm scared to do that, Sammy.
I wouldn't be doing it. I wouldn't do it.
So, and I can't tap my feet now if they're doing it.
Yeah, I would just try and keep them fed. Do you know what I mean?
Nah.
Like, whatever you can do, just keep them fed.
I am not having luck with that. They eat and eat and eat. Like, those 2 pounds like of strawberries? They can devour one of those in like an hour. So that's hard to do, Sammy.
Yeah. That we can only try. So I was thinking, talking of great sacrifices that mothers make for children, let's talk about some projects that we're currently working on. And wait, I haven't finished the segue. I haven't finished the segue. I haven't finished it. And the sacrifices that we make to produce great software for our clients. Look, do you know what? It's great because we're a consultancy. I have no idea what projects either of you are working on, and the areas that you've been focused on recently. So yeah, let's hear about what are you working on at the moment?
So I actually just rolled off of a project that was selling Medicare, and so Medicare is like the insurance. I don't know the technical, like who is eligible for it.
It's like the insurance that you have, the health insurance you have in the UK, Sammy. Only not everyone is eligible for it.
It's the government healthcare, isn't it?
Yes.
There it goes. Yes.
Okay.
That's what I was trying to say. Thank you. It's great to have a good team. So this platform, it helps agents sell Medicare to their clients. And so I was on that project for a year and a half. I did have like a short parental leave in there because my baby, Harlow, which she's about to turn a year next month, which is just blows my mind.
Oh no, that's the age. That's the age the Spiderlings were in that program.
She would try. She would try to mess with you like that. She does that a lot. So,
what's the like tech stack on that project? Are you working like the front end or the back end?
yeah, so it was actually a really good project because JavaScript is my main language, like React Native, React, any of those things. And so over the last 6 months, I've been trying to learn Rails. And so the front end was React, and then the back end was Rails. And it actually was allowed me to dig heavy into the Rails part because early on it was heavy React, and then we got to a point to where like we built out the React and we didn't do much with the React. It was like little tweaks here and there. The foundation was already set up, so it was heavy Rails, which was very challenging but very good because I feel like if you're learning a language, the best way to learn is get in the game, get a task, and struggle through it. And I did that a lot. It was interesting because I could pick up and make things work, but the syntax in my head is a JavaScript syntax. So it's hard for me to transition over to, like, for example, double ampersand. We use that a lot in React. Rails, you're like, what? We don't use that. Like, so things like that was very interesting whenever I would do PRs, and they would just laugh at me and help me. So I had a good team that was working with me. But yeah, so that's what I was doing with that one. And I'm currently on a part-time project where the client was using Sequin as like a syncing. So between like our Airtable is like almost like Google Sheets, and you could type stuff in there. So we're using Sequin to sync between like Google Sheets, Airtable to like a Postgres
I actually
database.
don't know what Sequin is. What is it?
It's really
Is it
just
a service?
Yeah, it's a service. Yeah.
That you host, or is it a hosted service?
Host it, and it's going out of service. So like it's going out of business.
Great.
So that was the whole reason I got pulled onto the project. So it was very interesting because it's going to be simple, easy. It was not simple and easy to transition.
Who said it was going to be simple and easy?
Sequin. When they were going out, they're like, oh yeah, just use this place. And it ended up being 10 times more expensive than what we're paying. And so we're like, and it's a nonprofit that I'm working with. So I was like, yeah, that's not going to work. So I had to end up backtracking, doing some research, and we're able to do it. We're in the testing phase right now, making sure we're not losing any data. So I'm running Airbyte is the replacement. So I'm running Airbyte and Sequin in parallel. And so making sure that we're not losing any data. And I think next week I'll transition it fully over. And that's been a good challenge for me too, because like I said, I'm front end, I'm not really database. So learning I had to do a lot of SQL queries to check the database, make sure it's good. So it's challenging, but I love challenge. So it's right up my alley. And I'll be honest, when I first took on the project, I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing. Like, what am I doing? How am I going to do this? But my team believed in me, and they were like, Will, you got it. You could do it. And they were right. I ended up doing it, no problem. And I think it's been probably 5 years since I did SQL queries, and I was able to learn it. So
I mean, as someone who also learns by doing, I don't tend to like learn in a by books or something like that. I tend to learn by doing. I think it's super important to be able to like go onto a project and you may not know everything, but you also need to realize like, at least for me, I realize like this is how I learn. Like in order to learn something new, I need to be put in this scenario because I know if I just sort of sat down with a book about SQL, I wouldn't learn the same way that I do.
Yeah. I'm the same way. Because I remember that was one of the biggest challenge when I was learning how to code. People would be like, hey, this is a great book. And it just never clicked for me. But if you gave me a problem and you said, Will, go and struggle for a couple hours, then if you have questions, come ask me and I'll help you. That's when I really flourished and really was able to learn it. So yeah, I'm very similar to you with that.
So I have a question, which is like when you're put in that position, how do you carry yourself in front of the client? How do you deal with? Well, let me answer for myself because it sounds like I'm trying to put you like in a position where it
You
gets
could have. I
awkward.
was going to answer the way I would answer, but go ahead.
Okay, go ahead and answer.
So if you know anything about me, if you ask a question, I'm going to give you the honest truth, and that's just who I am. Like sometimes it gets me in trouble because I'm like, hey, this is my opinion. I'm not going to lie to you or sugarcoat it because I'm that person that give it to me straight. Like if it hurts my feeling, it hurts my feelings, but at least I know the truth. And so with the client, I went in and say, hey, this is what's happening. They're shutting this down. I need to go and find a service to replace this. They recommend one. It may work, it may not. If it works, that's really good. If it doesn't, it's going to take me more time to do it. But these are the things I think is most important for you. You're a nonprofit, so it needs to be around the same price. I need to be very careful on my time, and I just can't spend hours and hours researching. So I need to be very structured and not losing the data. So those are my big things. And I was honest with them. They're like, yeah, if you could do that, you're winning. And so, and just like, I'm not sure. I need to go do the research because I'm not 100% confident in that. And they responded and like, yeah, perfect. And I actually ended up, the time that I estimated, I ended up doing it in less time. So they were really happy with it.
Yeah, that's similar to what I was going to say, which is clients respond really well to confidence. And you can be uncertain or you can not know something.
Yeah.
But if you approach the fact that you don't know it with confidence, that instills confidence in the client. I think when you both don't know something and you approach it with, what's the opposite of confidence?
What is the opposite of confidence? Don't Google this. Wait.
It's not like arrogance or being humble. It's
no. When you approach it,
it's very rare, I guess.
It's like a lack of confidence or lack of self-belief.
With a lack of confidence and a lack of knowledge, that's a recipe where clients start to get nervous. And they second guess that you're going to be able to do it, even if you are able to actually do it.
But as consultants, like we have this quite a bit. I feel like I'm constantly put onto projects where there's some aspect I don't know, whether that's the domain I've never worked in, or there's a technical aspect which I don't know about. And I also my approach is just to be completely honest with the client. I like the idea of trying to instill confidence. I think that's a good piece of advice. But also being honest and saying, look, here are the things that I know. I know the agnostic principles of how the internet works. I know these things. I know how to piece these things together. This specific technology, I was working on one recently where probably quite similar to you, Will. They were integrating with a secondary database, which was a service called Snowflake. And I've never used Snowflake before. I don't know how it works. And Snowflake was saying, we're stopping you connecting in this way, and you need to connect in another way. So, I've never used Snowflake before. I don't really understand how that works, but I know about database connections. There is a protocol, or what does anyone here know what it's called? ODBC?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
What does that stand for?
Heard that, yeah.
Come on, Chad. ODBC, what is it?
Oh, I don't know what it stands for.
I think it's Open Database Connections, which I think is what.
Yeah, something like that. That sounds about right.
Oh, I'm getting Open Database Connectivity or something like that. Yeah. So whether that's like SSH or whichever way to integrate. So it's kind of saying, look, I know these principles that surround the thing that I don't know, and I think that gives me enough of a foundation to be able to learn the part in the middle, which is what we're trying to do. And I think it's always good to be transparent with clients. You'll only lose out otherwise, because if you come in and like, oh yeah, I know this, I've done this before, and then 3 weeks down the line,
right, and that's
it's not working. You're then in a position where they're frustrated because they expected it to be done quite quickly because you said you've done this. And you've put a lot of intense pressure on yourself, which is not necessary.
I will say, and I've been here almost 4 years. I will say a lot of that depends on the culture that thoughtbot has. I've been a part of companies to where it's like, no, you can't tell them that. Like, you gotta tell them XYZ and like have that arrogance. And then it's like, wait, like, now how do I do this? Because now I couldn't deliver and now I'm in trouble. So I would say a lot of the culture here has helped me. And I still, like, the culture here, I'm still trying to figure out. And what I mean by that is like, I had a conversation with my, boss about like, Will, it's okay to take your internal meetings. We are built to do that. And so it's hard to, and what I mean by that is like, so we're a consulting agency. It feels like you need to be 8 hours with the client a day, doing something. And that's not, and if I'm saying this and I'm not supposed to, chat, let me know. But, I think the technical thing is like 6.5 hours because we have time built in for meetings, because that's how we operate. Like, we have to have internal meetings. Like, we have trainings that we have to do. We have just whatever on thoughtbot side that we have to take care of. And even that little thing is hard at times because you want to do 8 hours a day with your client, go all in. So I will say the culture here lends itself to being honest and not worrying about getting in trouble at the end of the day. Because if you're honest and say, hey, I'm not sure of this, like, you're not worried about well, hey, Will, you're gonna lose your job because you didn't deliver. No, you're honest about, hey, I'm struggling with this, and this is where I'm at. So I will say the culture has a big part of that. Tell me if I messed up on any of that, Chad.
No, I think that's good. It's taken me as well time to internalize that as well. The phrase that, I don't know if I read this in the handbook that we have or somewhere else, but it's, one of the reasons we're as good individually as we are is because we kind of have this collective culture, whether you call, those I'm only a good as good as a developer as I am because I have meetings with my team lead where I can talk to and get support. We have these internal trainings. And so everything we do internally ultimately benefits the client externally.
Yeah, I think it's a bunch of different things all wrapped up. We also sort of, by being honest about what's working well, what's not, then we can actually improve. And that can be a spot thing. That could be like, this week I'm really struggling because I'm running into this challenge. You calling out to the rest of thoughtbot team and finding someone that can help you, or going to the brain trust, and that offsets the time. So we don't need to count the hours because when you call out to the rest of thoughtbot and you have 30 people thinking about this problem, we're not ticking the time of all those other people either. So it all results are over time, results are what matters, and we'll step up, or it's the results speak for themselves.
Yeah, unless you keep tapping into the
That's-
brain trust to ask about how to house pet rabbits you might buy. I don't think that's beneficial for the clients. But
No, that's not beneficial to the clients.
no,
You
but
sound
it's
like you're speaking from experience,
oh,
Sami.
it's someone else. It's a colleague. It's not me. Obviously, it's not me. It's a colleague who keeps asking about what would be the best way to look after rabbits. But yeah, we'll have to see if I can get them through the house without anyone else noticing. But yeah, it's
yeah.
the brain trust. I like that term.
That is good, because I feel like I've been here almost 4 years. When I get in trouble is when I don't ask and don't reach out to that brain trust
Mhm.
and feel like I have to do it by myself. Like, I've never missed a deadline or anything because of that brain trust that's helped me. I've come across some problems that I'm like, I have no idea what I'm doing. And especially at Rails, like I was telling my team, I was like, I don't know where this magic stuff coming from. Like in JavaScript, I could tell you, the breadcrumbs lead me to somewhere. And at the end of the day, I could tell you it's this package because it was imported this way, on and on. With Rails, I'm like, man, it was truly a magic trick that this just method came out of nowhere, and voila, you could use it. But on the next time, voila, your magic trick failed. So
I think that comes with experience, though.
exactly. And my team been good with that. Yeah.
So Chad,
Yeah.
what's going on in your world? What are you working on at the moment?
Well, when it comes to development stuff, I've been on this journey. Actually, you got me ranting at the end of the last episode of our show, where it was just us without a guest, about semantic web and good markup and non JavaScript interfaces and all that stuff. So that's been a thing that I've been working on for a while now, converting. So like the first thing was taking a bunch of modals that were in an application and converting them to the dialogue element and actual real markup, and browser support for that kind of stuff is good now. So we can actually use those elements, and they're really nice and have full keyboard control and stuff. You get that all for free, and it works really well. And so the new thing I've been doing is converting old layouts that either use Flexbox or absolute positioning or that kind of thing to and just media queries to do mobile layouts, to be using CSS grid and container queries. And this is super technical, but the benefit of container queries over traditional media queries is if you have, like, this is what we have on Hub, we have the sidebar that's collapsible or not. And so with traditional media queries, your boxes are only able to respond to the browser width. So when you resize the browser width or you visit on a mobile device, it makes it adjusts to fit the size of the browser. Well, if you have a browser of a certain width and you then collapse a sidebar and you're using media queries, nothing adjusts for the extra space that you've just given it. But a container query works just like traditional media queries, only the box is able to respond to the width of its container rather than just the width of the browser. So just in the last couple of years, we've gotten full support for container queries in all the major browsers. And so I've been sort of tracking that and interested in it. I never used them extensively before, and so being able to dive in and convert a bunch of layouts to use them so that it's more responsive to the actual size available to it has been an interesting, not only exercise learning, but also it makes, in somewhat subtle ways, but important when you're picky like me, the application better for users.
You would love the
How?
most recent episode on Svenja's opinionated thoughtbotter series. So Svenja talks to Elena. I mean, the title is "You're not a full stack developer without CSS." And I don't know if you saw kind of like one of the comments where it was like CSS is more important to a web page than JavaScript. Only semantic HTML and CSS are necessary for a functional, beautiful website. I'm wondering if that was you who left the comment.
It wasn't me. It
I don't know.
wasn't me.
I don't know. But I found that episode so triggering because I'm like, I'm not a full stack developer. I don't understand
You're
enough
not.
about CSS. CSS is hard.
CSS, yeah.
So Chad, you're working on an internal application that we use at thoughtbot. With the
Yeah.
stuff that you're doing, how do you make a judgment, like effort versus outcome? Because you're doing a task which I feel would be difficult sometimes to justify to clients. So hey, we're going to make things more semantic, or we're going to move towards kind of best practice, and they're like, yeah, but it works. Like it's loading fine and it's working fine. So how do you kind of justify that in terms of what you spend your time on?
That's a good question. The way that I think about that is probably that I am doing it because it's the right thing to do. That gives me the opportunity to learn it so that the next time I build an application, I'm able to do it that way from the start. I wouldn't necessarily, if everything's working and there's no other reason why, just go into a client project and say, we're going to do this.
Right.
But I would if we're working on a redesign or we're refactoring a component extensively or whatever. I would say now's a great opportunity to do this because we're going to get these other things for free when we switch to this this new element that's available in browsers today. And because I've got experience with it, I'll be able to do it quickly as part of the work we're already doing. That's the way that I would think about it. Similar to like on the Ruby side of things, or in our style guides, we say like, don't rewrite existing code to match these styles.
Oh, I didn't know we did that. Okay.
Yeah, I mean, if you're an existing code base that's of a radically different style than our style guide, if you go in and start following our style guide within that code base, you're actually doing the code base a disservice.
So it's when you have consistency against best practice, you would choose consistency.
Yeah, and especially in the short term.
That's super interesting to me because I had that fight with a client. I say fight in very, very loose words. It was an enjoyable technical discussion where I was arguing for certain best practice and he was saying, yeah, but we've done it this way and it's going to be easier if we continue this pattern. And to be fair, and I said this in a retro when the kind of project wound down, I said you were absolutely right about that decision. And a big takeaway for me was that best practice is there for a purpose, but then so is consistency. And that's a trade-off. And the consistency helped us because of the way we needed to, handle certain objects interchangeably, that if they would have been built differently, it would have made it a lot more difficult.
Is this the lesson you learned from your father-in-law's music?
Don't bring that up. Don't bring that up.
Yep. Sounds like it. So
no, because that was a Greenfield app.
Okay, yeah.
But no, it just comes from working in a lot of existing applications and realizing that consistency is more important in the short term. That doesn't mean that you don't try to bend towards an improvement over time. But if you go in fighting the existing code, the existing things, you actually do more damage in the short term than you otherwise would.
Yeah. Yeah. And one of my dangerous characteristics is I can easily chase the new things if I'm not careful. So like, this is one thing that I'm like, okay, if it's consistent, I'll do this. And I kind of like what you said, like I'll do it on an internal project or a breakable toy and chase the new things. And then once I get comfortable with it, I'm like, okay, this is a new project. I can do it on there. So yeah, that's really good advice. I have a question for you around, so you wear many hats in the company, like many hats, founder, just like a lot of them, but you're still developing and keeping up with what's going on because like you said, container queries are newer. So like, how are you able to do that? Like, why are you able to do that? Because most companies would be like, I wear too many hats. I love coding, but I just don't have the time for it.
Yeah, I think this is one of the things that it is benefit that I'm in charge. So it's super important to me to do it. I also know that there are times where it's not the most important thing for the company. For me, like probably this afternoon, I'll do some coding on some random thing. It's not the most important. What I'm working on at that point is probably not the most important thing. But I also know that because I do that, I've been able to do this for 24 plus years. And so that is more important than the short term thing that I'm coding that I probably shouldn't be coding on. But that keeps me sane, keeps me grounded, keeps me able to start work next week and do the things I don't necessarily want to do or can't do sustainably.
Yeah. I can find an argument to say that it is important because you stay in, like, if you're, like you said, and this is not how you lead, but you're in charge and you make a lot of decisions. I think that helps you relate to us and understand what we're going through. So I would say it's very important that you continue to code because, like, once you get out of touch and, like, I've been a part of companies where it's like the people at the top just get out of touch with coding and it's like, hey, that's going to take time. And they're like, I need it tomorrow. And you're like, did you forget coding? Like, it just takes time and stuff. So,
yeah. And then the other side is I have so many, conversations with new clients, existing clients, that knowledge about what real world experience is super important, not only to when it comes to like accurate estimating and quoting, but being an effective communicator with them and closing new work. It's helpful during the sales process. That's also why, like, not only was I interested in mobile development, but when we started doing mobile development, I made a point of learning and working on mobile applications because I really felt like, one, I was interested in it, but two, I really needed to be able to like accurately communicate and understand and like know when a client is coming to us with this idea for a new mobile product, like, is that even possible on Apple platforms, for example? Like being able to like understand those questions on the fly. I don't know. It's important to me.
That's good.
Effective for clients. Yeah.
So what you're doing this afternoon is important.
Yeah.
Now you get permission to do it.
Okay.
Freedom. No, that's really good stuff. Sami, you want to talk about what you're working on?
Yeah, so I've come off a recent project which was working on a TikTok integration to allow influencers, I consider myself an influencer, but other influencers with real data to sign up to this platform, hand over integrate with TikTok, so all their data could be pulled into this platform, and then brands could come and view the data and see who might be the best to promote their products or their messaging. It was really interesting. Again, it was a topic I didn't know much about. I've never used TikTok, but the theoretical concepts are pulling in data from a different platform and displaying them, which, whether that's a TikTok API or some other service, is pretty much the same thing. So I was able to kind of talk to the client about it in those terms. And then I've recently just started a project which is based on cryptocurrencies. So it's going to be allowing people to trade crypto, purchase crypto, sell crypto. And similar to what you said, Will, like, I have no idea. Like the domain. So again, like from a technical standpoint, it's mainly using APIs. So the backend makes a lot of sense to me. I haven't used, we've got a React Native mobile front end. I haven't used React Native for maybe 6 years. So a lot of things have changed there. And I haven't used JavaScript in a long time. So I'm interested to see what that will be like. I think AI might help me quite a bit to understand things and ask questions about the code, which would be cool. So there's a bit of unknowns there, but like the domain knowledge is tricky for me, and that's something which I enjoy, but it's always a challenge, which is, okay, so my head's been in social media companies and social media data, and now it's that. And before that, what was I on before? Before that, I was doing cosmetics, like an e-commerce based platform. Before that, I was doing like a
Banking,
darts social platform.
Oh, darts. Yeah.
Yeah, and then I was on a banking one, and it's like
Oh, wow.
it's yeah. So that, like, getting up to speed with the domain and understanding how that works is keeps me interested, but it's also a big challenge. So my knowledge of crypto, I think my brother once lost a lot of money because he saw an article about Amazon were going to buy a cryptocurrency. So he put money in that and lost it. But like, that's, my knowledge is very thin on the ground. I've watched a few YouTube videos about how it works. So yeah, it's going to be like getting up to speed with that. And it's difficult because the client, like, they know the domain really well. So they've come into this space knowing enough about crypto to be able to decide that software could really help achieve something we want to achieve. So I have to get up to speed, ask lots of questions, and it's going to be, hopefully it'll be a really interesting project.
That one's interesting because you participated a while ago in originally sort of scoping out the project.
Yeah, I got really lucky. I was in when it was between Christmas Day and New Year's, so you kind of got those 3 days in December, and the call actually came in from the client, and we had a sales person at the time, and they said, like, okay, we've got this call, but no one's around. So everyone who would normally handle the sales call, whether it was Chad or the managing director, like, they just weren't present. So I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do it. So I jumped into the call because no one else was around, and did help with the scoping of that project. And it was actually a really interesting experience. I have done it before at a previous company, but I haven't done it at thoughtbot. And this kind of comes back actually to what we were talking about before in terms of being transparent about what we don't know. What I found it hard when I was in the sales call, as opposed to being a developer, when I'm a developer, I definitely felt most comfortable saying, I don't know, let me go and research. Because I don't have experience in sales, and then I was put into that sales environment, I was like, okay, we got to win this. Like, if I win this is going to be really cool. But it's how do you balance that with also being able to say, we don't know about this, or we need to do more research about this, without kind of losing that confidence in the client?
Well, I'll tell you how I think about it, which is what you said. Like, we're put into, part of what we do is we go into many different domains: banking, darts, cosmetics, e-commerce, crypto. That's not why, like, that's, clients come to us and work with us not because of our expertise in a in a particular industry or type. It's that we're experts in creating products and doing it successfully. And so that part of being able to go into any domain and get up to speed while doing that is what they're working with us for.
Yeah,
That's how I think about it.
That makes sense. And to be fair, that's, I think, in all the projects I've been on, we've kind of lent on the client to explain the domain and to get us up to speed.
I'll even say that to clients. I'll say, we're experts in creating products that people love to use. You're experts in your business. And together we're going to create this great new product or improve an existing one.
How do you feel about learning different avenues? Because I am a learner at heart. I'm at my best whenever I have to learn new things. Like, I tell people often, like, if I'm bored, I am not a good employee. I'm just not, because I don't feel like I'm making a difference. When I feel like I'm making a difference, like, I'm a great employee and stuff. So, like, being able to have to learn, you said cosmetics, crypto, I think you said darts. Sami, like, how do you feel about learning all those different avenues?
Well, I think at £7.50 an hour, like, it's very difficult not to be motivated, whether I'm bored or not. Like, I'm at the top of my game constantly.
That was a great response.
So, and I've lost trail of your question. Your question was, how do I get up to speed, or how do I learn?
How do you feel about it? Because I will say this, I love being able to learn about new avenues. Like, I didn't know anything about Medicare or insurance. Now that I worked in, I'm like, oh, that's an interesting field and what they're doing in the background. So, like, I would, if I was in your shoes, I would love to learn about cosmetics and how the e-commerce of it operates, and then, like, crypto. Like, I'm with you. I have no idea what crypto, how it operates and the back stuff, and I haven't had time to learn that. But now you're about to take that time. So, like, how do you feel about that? Is it?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think I'm inquisitive by nature, and I'm a very curious person, and I ask a lot of questions, and that's really helpful for me, because I do enjoy kind of breaking things down and understand how they're really working under the hood. I like simplifying things. And so, it definitely is something that keeps me engaged. The longest I was on a project was for 2 years. I was on one project, and I did find myself kind of getting, it's like the same thing constantly, again and again and again. And it's quite refreshing to have a different domain and be able to get into someone else's world, to be like, oh, okay, that's how you run this sort of business, and that's what's important in this industry. And there's a lot of crossover. Like, it all boils down to people having a service and trying to trade that service for some cash. So yeah, but I find it very interesting. We're coming towards the end of this episode. I know Chad's got some code indulging that he wants to get involved in this afternoon.
Can I ask Chad one other question about that?
Yeah, for sure. As long as it doesn't involve spiders or spiderlings, whatever. Yeah, go for it.
Is that a mark of a good consultant, someone that's naturally open to learning the different domains? And is that one of the reasons why we have, like, a high, I don't know what it is, but, like, the time at thoughtbot, like, I'm at 4 years almost, and that's in tech, that's a long time. Does that play a key into that?
I think so. Even myself, like, I intentionally change what I do, or what, every few years, because otherwise, like, the tenure at tech companies now is just above 2 years. So being able to, within thoughtbot, work on something new, I think does help extend that and keep things interesting. But we're also not a fit for everybody. Like, you need to be comfortable with being uncomfortable. if you're not comfortable with being uncomfortable, being in a spot where you are expected to perform with in an area that you're not familiar with, and being able to, this is bringing it all the way back around, like being able to approach that with confidence that like, yeah, I may not know this, but I know that I know how to learn.
Yeah.
And so, we're not necessarily a fit for everybody, but being able to be comfortable with that is a key indicator that you'll be a fit here, but also be a good consultant overall.
And that's a lovely way to bring us to the end of this episode, bang on time. So you can find notes and a complete transcript for this episode at giantrobots.fm. If you have questions or comments, you can email us at hosts@giantrobots.fm. This podcast is brought to you by thoughtbot. Thank you to everyone for listening, and we'll see you next time.